Take out your pens and papers because it's time to break down the top 100 prospects in Major League Baseball for 2025. And who better to break down the list than the man who wrote it himself, Aram Leighton. My name is Peter Oppel, and I'm playing point guard, bouncing as many questions as possible for everyone listening to get a good understanding of the best prospects in baseball. And it's all brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Many of our listeners have used code JustBaseball to place MLB futures because if your first pick loses after using code JustBaseball on BetMGM, you get it all back in bonus bets up to $1,500. Or instead of waiting for your futures to cash, the Dodgers take on the Cubs in Tokyo with first pitch scheduled at 6:05 a.m. Eastern. Yes, in the morning on Tuesday, March 18th, and I'll have a pick for that, as I always do, which is actually dropped in our Discord. To join the Discord, still $5 a month in the episode description. But remember, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. Aram, first question. How's your blood pressure doing? Writing thousands and thousands of words just for people on social media to immediately discredit you because their favorite player wasn't in the top 10.
Yeah, that we talk about this every time, and I always think I'm gonna get like more used to it. But as the list grows and like the our following grows, it casts a wider net of reaction, and so then I'm tested a little bit more every time. But being that a couple of the players which we're going to talk about that we may have been lower on the list are very popular on social media, it did bring in quite a few comments and things like that. It also didn't help that we have three Dodgers in the top 10 if you count Roki Sasaki, which was not intentional. I don't give a shit about the Dodgers, but it just happens to be that they have three prospects that I think are the top 10 in baseball. That, of course, did not get a great reaction from folks either, but I know that the people that we are really, speaking to on here and that like listen to the show and whatever are reading the write-ups or at least checking it out and following along. But when you see a graphic and then you just freak out at the graphic, I'm still getting used to just ignoring those people. But it has been cool to see the reach of it and like how much this has grown even in the last few years. And I appreciate people that, take the time to actually read what goes into it too.
So just another reminder for everybody listening, you can follow along on justbaseball.com. Aram put up the full top 100. You'll see the list ranked 1 through 100. If you click on the name, it's got a full write-up for every single player. And to further what Aram was saying, to answer my first question, for all those listening on YouTube, if you think it's a crappy list, that's fine. Tell us why. I don't need to see all of these comments where this list sucks.
That's it.
Use
Yeah.
some of your brain, people, at least if you're going to hate. Go into the comments, be like, this list sucks because this player is lower than this player, and this is the reason why. Love those comments. Let's go back and forth. This is a subjective list. No list is perfect. So if you think it sucks, let us know why in the YouTube comments below. And if you think it's great or have any other questions, again, fill up those YouTube comments. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. And if you're listening on audio, rate and review 5 stars. Aram, without further ado, let's get straight into it because you see my Google Doc list of questions. I got about
Yeah.
100. So I don't want to waste any more time. I want to get straight into it. You ready?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's get straight into it. So we're going to start with a Discord question. And just another reminder, we started a Discord about a week and a half, or maybe it was just a week ago at this point, and it's got channels for every single vertical that we cover at Just Baseball, whether that be MLB, minor league, college, fantasy baseball, betting, trading cards. It's been phenomenal, and it's only
Been a blast.
$5 to join right now until opening day. And we're going to be instituting a lot of questions from the Discord. So the first one is from Undisputed Joey. What do you believe is the strongest position right now? Which positions have the highest concentration of the best players?
I'm still stuck on. So is he saying that nobody's disputing that he's Joey? Like he's the most Joey of anybody?
The most Joey of anybody.
All right, I love that.
Especially, unfortunately, after Joey Gallo just got released by the White Sox and then went on X and said, see you later to the outfield. Actually, I'm going to pitch now. So yes, he is the undisputed
Yeah,
Joey.
that's a guy who has no interest in a desk job. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay on this field as long as I can, and I love it. Joey Gallo pitching is gonna be a lot of fun. But to answer the question, it's a good one because I think two positions that had become a little bit thin over the last 8, 10 years even, but I would say more recently, like just 3 to 5 years in the minor leagues, have become pretty darn deep. And it's two key spots: catcher, shortstop. You could always say right-handed pitcher and stuff like that, but the pitching side is always funny because you don't really know who's going to ultimately for sure stick as a starter, what the roles are going to be, and you're always going to have a ton of pitchers. That's like it's a little apples to oranges when we're comparing to a specific defensive spot, but shortstops, it's a little tough too because everyone's kind of a shortstop before they move off of it in the minor leagues, right? Like they're going to give you every opportunity to try to prove that you can stick it short. Like Sebastian Walcott's going to still be considered a shortstop, the Rangers' top prospect, but he's probably going to move to third. He does count towards the 16 shortstops though in the top 100, but I went through it for that reason. And I was like, how many do I think have a better than 50% chance of sticking at shortstop? And I still thought it was more than a dozen, or at
Hmm.
least a dozen. So that's a lot. And I think that says a lot about the position and the depth there all of a sudden because there's not a ton of shortstop depth in the major leagues right now. And then catchers. And that's something that we've already seen start to matriculate to the big leagues where catchers have we've seen some really good young catchers now impacting at the big league level. You can kind of look across the game. There's a handful, but for a while it was a pretty barren position. 13 catchers on this top 100 as well. Similar thing. How many are going to stick? I think at least 11 of them. So catchers is another position where I think you got a lot of talent coming through as well. And those are two spots that obviously teams are going to try to stockpile as many guys as they can.
This question was not on the Google Doc, but you just got my brain going. That's what you do in this episode. So just a softball question. Compare this top 100 to all the other lists that you have done in the past. Is this the most talented? Maybe the least talented? Right in the middle? Where does it sit?
It's a little weaker.
Huh.
If you talk to people in the industry, they'd probably say the same thing. And that's the part of the reason why it's kind of hard to rank these players. And that's why, when people were a little surprised by how maybe different this list was than the consensus, I think when it's a little bit weaker, it's a lot more wide open and different factors can have a bigger impact on where you rank that player because there's not that clear cut blue chip like stretch of 15 prospects sometimes that we see. So I would say it's a little bit lighter this year. And it's a lot of guys that I think would usually be in the middle to the back end of the top 100 that are in the middle to the front end of the top 100. Once you get to the top 10, there's a lot of studs there, but even then, I think in the back of the top 10, several of those guys maybe 2, 3 years ago would have been more in the 15 to 20 range. And I think that's part of the surprise and the reaction. But I do think it's a little bit weaker this year. Maybe as weak of a list as I've put together, to be honest.
Interesting. One of the weakest. And what was the first list you put out? Was that back in 2021? I mean, you've been
Yeah,
making
that like
prospect lists since you were probably 5 years old.
yeah, that I
Yeah.
full-fledged published, which is funny, and it just puts it in perspective. And I was thinking about it in terms of because we put the future value grades and like even just looking at the top of the future value grades, like the two top guys are 60 plus, which is, all-star, or the plus means I can maybe get to the 65 future value, which is kind of perennial all-star. But the first list was deciding between Julio, Bobby, and Adley.
Yeah.
And you remember that conversation. That was the first list that we like full-fledged published on the website and everything. And like those guys were all 70 future value. I don't think I've seen that, even before when I would put them down, make these lists and not publish them. 370 future value guys is pretty crazy. So that's probably one where it was like puts in perspective maybe how different this year is. But then even a couple years ago, I think you could still see a couple 65 future value guys, like the two top guys in here. And I know some people have Sasaki as the 65 future value guy. We're going to get into that. But you just don't really have those clear cut, MVP candidates, so to speak, although Roman Anthony's starting to make a case.
So the Guardians, Dodgers, and White Sox have seven of the top 100 players on this list. But which one of them do you think has the best minor league system in all of baseball?
Ooh, that's a good question too, because I mean the White Sox obviously are loading up, and for good reason. They're trading all of their, whatever assets they've had, and Garrett Crochet getting moved helped them a lot. But you have to also like expand beyond the top 100. Of course, that gives you the core value of prospects there. But then, what about the 8 to 15 range? How many big leaguers are in that fold? And I think that's an area where the White Sox have a lot more coming in as well, because Chase Mydroth, who they got in that Crochet deal, is like almost a guarantee to at least fill a role at the big league level. The guy was one of the best bat to ball guys in the minor leagues last year. Like, he looks really solid. They have a couple other arms that they've added that look intriguing. So I would say the White Sox are right there. The Guardians, I think, are a little bit further off depth wise, but I really like what they've got at the top, and Cooper Ingle sneaking into the back of the top 100 really, I think, elevated the top end talent there. But I just, and I hate to just keep talking about him, but I just struggle to see a farm system right now that is more clear cut dominant than what the Dodgers have going on. I know people don't want to hear it. I get it, but even the feedback I got where I was sending this list around to, people in the industry, some scouts, and people with rival teams, and the feedback I got was that I was too low on several Dodgers guys. So we bumped those guys up a little bit. It wasn't Hope, but nobody told me Hope was too high. But like Alex Freeland, shortstop, who looks like he could potentially take over at that position if they need him to sometime this year. Everybody kept telling me, you need Freeland higher. You need Freeland higher. Jackson Ferris, who they got in that Michael Busch trade, kept being told, need him higher. And then they've got a bunch of intriguing guys at the lower levels. I'd probably say it's the Dodgers, unfortunately.
I love that. Unfortunately. And it's not like we're haters on the Dodgers. It's just people who listen to baseball, and you can tell all over social media, like the Dodgers hate is real. People are sick of hearing about the Dodgers. Dodger fans love it, right?
Yeah,
They hear the word unfortunately, and I think even they get it because they
yeah,
know they're going to have to spend $2,000 a ticket to see this team, and it's one of the best built teams of our lifetime
yeah.
while having the number one farm system in baseball. So we understand, for all those listening, I know you don't want to hear all the Dodgers stuff, but at some point, the answer is the answer, and they're the best farm system in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. The two guys that just coincidentally, both Dodgers guys that I'm higher on, and will probably make a little bit of a case for him in Dalton Rushing. I know that was another one where a lot of people were like, "Whoa, Rushing is the top catching prospect," and I laid out my case, and that was one of those where actually people that were being pretty mean, immediately were like, "Oh, that actually kind of makes sense. I get it now. Thanks for the info." So that was cool because, again, that's all I want to do is you can disagree all you want, but just let's talk about it. If you still disagree with the, KPIs, right, the key performance, indicators that I'm highlighting, then fine, that's okay, and we'll just leave it at that. But I think sometimes just the I hate this and then leave it, and it's just we're not getting anywhere there. But Dalton Rushing, his 90th percentile exit velocity was 106 miles per
Here,
hour. He had one of the
I just want to hold that for a second because later on, once we kind of get into the top 10, I want to compare those two
okay.
again. So I'm just going to stop you there, keep moving through. So the Braves, Astros, Yankees, Blue Jays, and Giants have only one prospect in the top 100. Which one of them has the worst minor league system?
I thought about this one for a while, and I don't know if I can like for sure confidently answer one specifically, but I will eliminate the Braves. We just wrote up the Braves system on justbaseball.com. We'll do that call up episode in a week or so once we're done with the top 100 breakdowns. The Braves just have enough almost guaranteed big league arms that, and plus Drake Baldwin, that they're in Caminiti. I'm putting them in a higher regard than the rest of these farm systems. The Astros now have Cam Smith, though it does get a little bit thin after that. The Blue Jays, I think, are really close to the Yankees, but at the same time, after this last draft, you get Trey Savage. I think that's a guy that is not far off from the top 100 as well. And the Yankees, I wouldn't have put them in the bottom coming into the year, but Chase Hampton being out now for the entirety of the season, Thatcher Hurd being out for the entirety of the season, Spencer Jones on a downturn a little bit as well. George Lombard is ascending though, and he's a guy that we're going to talk about just missed. Like, he's a guy that just missed. I just wanted to see it a little bit more. And, if he has a good first couple months, he's going to be in the first update. But I would argue that the Yankees or the Astros are right there. The Giants are God, they're all really close. I put the Blue Jays eliminated as well, like positive eliminated. So Braves and Blue Jays are not in the bottom here. I think it's between the Astros, Yankees, and Giants. And with Cam Smith being the best prospect out of whoever like any of these teams really have, although Dominguez is not far off, but he's already like up there. I, I would go Yankees or Giants, and I kind of lean Yankees.
That deserves a long pause. Sad, you know.
But the
But
Yankees
too bad.
spawn these dudes, man. So like they do a good job of
The
developing
worst
like
system in baseball. The
it
worst. It's like you're trying to
it's
be like,
one
oh,
of
well, they might spot. No, we're the worst.
yeah, them or the Giants. I the Giants might
Great.
be worse.
No, stick with your guns. You think the Yankees are worse? I mean, the Giants have Bryce Eldridge.
They have Eldridge, Wisenhunt, Tibbs, Johnny Level. Ugh, it's just not great either, though. It's real close between those two.
Okay, Giants fans and Yankee fans, we got that. We're battling out for the second or the worst farm system in Major League Baseball. Phenomenal. All right, you ready to start getting into the list? And just another reminder for everybody listening, Aram and Jack are going through the entire list, five different call-up episodes, 181, 80 to 61, and so on, going all the way into the top 10, breaking down each individual player. So this episode is not really about the breakdown of each individual. It is more about players that I thought are maybe a little bit too low, maybe a little bit too high, general questions about the minor leagues. We'll talk about some of the more, you know, what's the word for it? The more controversial names,
Yeah.
because it's not really
It's
controversial.
more
It's
just
just their
like the
opinion.
themes. Yeah, and the
Yes.
themes and the conversation around it. And I'm honestly leaning towards the Giants being worse, to be honest. Not to make you feel better. I'm looking at it right now. I not good.
Well, it does make me feel better. So, getting into the top 100, I want to talk about the guys who are just off it. So, who are the just missed prospects, maybe 101 to 104,
Yeah.
and then what kept them off?
Yeah, I mean, George Lombard Jr. start there with the
Oh,
Yankees. Swing
okay. We're
adjustment.
close. We're close.
He put on some man strength this past year, and I mean, he looks like he could be on the cusp of a breakout this year. Of course, he was a first round pick, so it's not a full fledged breakout, but I think he could have a monster year. The only reason why I didn't want to put him on yet is I don't want to overreact to a spring training sample. Clearly, his swing's in a better spot, his body's in a better spot, and he's going to have a better year. How good of a year? I think we'll find out, and I just want to see that for a little bit longer before I just say swing adjustment, handful of good games. Let's put him up there. So just waiting on that, but I fully expect him to be on there. Nolan McLean is a guy that like it felt more like with the Mets, felt more like I just ran out of space. Like he was probably 101, and the Mets player development X account posted him pitching the other day, and some of his sweepers looked ridiculous. But this is a guy that was a two-way player at Oklahoma State who now has shifted his focus entirely to the mound, has a ridiculous feel to spin the baseball. He can get north of 3,000 RPM with the breaking balls. The fastball, he's still learning how to like separate the shapes and everything because he has not really focused on pitching that much. And now that he is really focusing on that and building more innings under his belt, I feel really confident that he's going to be at least a back end of the rotation starter, could have middle rotation upside. So McLean looks like a really good arm for the Mets. And then Sal Stewart, Reds, really good infielder. Hits the ball really hard, just still trying to find how to get it in the air more consistently and tap into more game power, but it's a lot of doubles, a little bit defensively limited, and that's why he didn't quite crack the list. And I want to see him get into that game power a little bit more, but I know he's been working on that, and I do think he's a guy that can make a big leap this coming season in the power department. Moises Chassé of the Phillies, just got a chance to see him in the spring breakout game. Ridiculous fastball. Really, really talented arm. Came over from the Orioles in that like Seranthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto deal. Just the secondaries are not quite consistent enough just yet, and the command is a little bit spotty. So that's what kept him just out. And then Nick York, similar to Sal Stewart, very, very similar in regards to hits the ball way harder than you'd expect, but it's more line drives, not pulling it in the air quite consistently enough. But York, I like as a guy that can move all over the infield, high floor, and doesn't get enough credit for his speed as well with the Pirates. He may get squeezed out of the opening day roster, and I think that would be a travesty considering Adam Frazier is going to take one of those spots.
So, Pirates, Phillies, Mets and Reds fans have to be happy to hear that because there's a big grouping of the top 100 prospects by team. So those four that I mentioned all have three in a cluster of like 10 to 15 teams. And it's clear once you have four, you kind of get into that upper echelon,
Hmm.
right? The Twins and the Rays both have four. The Cubs, the Tigers, and the Mariners have five. The Brewers have six. And then, of course, the Guardians, White Sox, and Dodgers have seven. So for the Phillies, Pirates, Mets, and Reds fans, they have to be excited that their groupings are getting kind of in the upper echelon of minor league systems. My next question goes into the 100 to 90 range, and it's less about the players and more about how you build out the list. So the question is, how do you balance floor and ceiling with a list like this? And I'm looking squarely at the grouping from 93 to 96. Arjun Namala with the Toronto Blue Jays comes in at 93. 19-year-old in high A, estimated to make a major league impact in 2028. Brody Hopkins only got as high as high A, but he's 23 years old versus Tyler Black, who comes in next, who's already had some big league service time, who's 24 years old. And then you ended at 96 again with Ralphie Velasquez for the Cleveland Guardians, another 19-year-old in high A, but this time he's a first baseman.
Yeah.
Like even Arjun Namala to Ralphie Velasquez, grading how important it is to play shortstop versus playing first base, how much you value the bat. And then you got an MLB guy who's already been up in 2024, but how big, how, tall is the ceiling versus Brody Hopkins, a little bit older. I felt that that grouping was a perfect microcosm of how to do this list at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the really hard part because it's kind of this give and take, right? Where it's like, is the upside of player A, who is more volatile, worth taking a shot versus the high floor of player B, who may be a little bit more limited? And it really comes down to how risky is player A and how confident am I in player B at least being a major league regular. And so, and then maybe with player B, can I dream on a little bit more ceiling wise? For the guys that are really capped, like even the high floor guys, like a Tyler Black, you still see an above average regular potentially in there. Like if he can play a full healthy season at the big league level, he could swipe 40 plus bags. He can get on base at a really high clip. He can hit 15 home runs. And he may not be the best defender, but he can play left. He can play first. He can plug in at third in an emergency. Like that's a good player. But, a guy that's going to be limited to just being an average regular, even on the high end, probably not going to make it. But even if that is a high probability outcome for him, still probably not going to make it. So it's that balance. And then on the flip side, a guy that has superstar potential, like even a Spencer Jones, right, still has monster potential, but I'm becoming decreasingly confident in his ability to get to that superstar outcome. And then I always think about what's the secondary outcome. And for a guy like Spencer Jones, it kind of feels like all or nothing. Whereas, a guy like Arjun Namala, it's volatile. He's risky, but he's a good shortstop. He runs pretty well. He at least has a chance to be, a fill-in middle infield type that can run into some home runs. And if not, I'd be pretty surprised. You're dreaming on a guy that can hit 25 plus and play above average short and do a lot of things really well. But I can still see a secondary outcome here where he's a really solid shortstop and, at least a part-time guy there. With Brody Hopkins, he has the pitch mix to be a disgusting, disgusting starter and like a middle rotation arm. But the secondary outcome is still a really solid high leverage reliever because his stuff is so nasty, even though he's a more volatile option. So it's like the high ceiling guys, is there still a decent secondary outcome there that I can dream on? And then the high floor guys, it's kind of balancing, just is there enough in there to be excited enough about them? And then it's just which would you rather have? And it's always a tough juggle.
So you run your list by scouts, people who work in the minor league, MLB front office members, and you have your own opinions and you make your list. After you post it, I assume you'll go look at other lists to see where you're different or maybe where you're the same. So among all the lists that you've looked at, how do you manage risk compared to them? Do
Hmm.
you feel that you're more risky going after your guys? Or do you feel like maybe you value the high floor of players higher than other lists?
Is it weird if I answer both?
Not at
Like,
all.
so that's the interesting part here is I think upside sometimes gets undersold. Like, and we'll talk about Zaire Hope. Like Zaire Hope is far off, but his metrics and his potential is so otherworldly, like in terms of what he was doing at age 19, that I'm gonna roll the dice on that guy any day of the week.
Yeah.
The other side of it is a Kevin McGonigal who's ranked one spot ahead of him. He's never going to win an MVP, I don't think. I don't want to put a ceiling on him, but I don't think so. But I feel so freaking confident that he is going to be a good big league hitter for a long time, that he is a top 10 prospect. So for
Mm.
me, like both of those things can solidly put you up there. I don't know if there's one that I like lean towards versus the other. Maybe it is the upside, because at the end of the day, this is all risk. The safest prospects of all time are risky. Like that, it's just how it is. It's baseball. So if we're weighing risk, I think at the end of the day, you got to really then weigh upside even more, because everybody's risky. There's not one prospect that at the end of the day you can say 100% chance he's going to be exactly what we think he is. You feel really confident about certain guys, but you never know. And I think that's an important reminder. Like, go look at top 100 lists from 2016, 17, 18, or before that if you want to as well. There's some can't miss guys that missed. So for that reason, I'm always going to lean a little bit more towards the upside, I would say.
So, as we continue to go down the list, I came up with my first problem with it. Now, I'm not, again, I have my problems with it, but I'm not as deep into the minor leagues as you and Jack. So, my problem is maybe an issue that other people on potentially social media share that aren't as invested in the minor leagues as you are, who may want some clarification. So, my first issue is Chandler Simpson is the fastest man in the minor leagues. He stole 104 bases. He hit 355 between high A and double A as a 23-year-old, but only comes in at number 85 on the top 100 prospects list. Why are you such an idiot?
I don't think he's on any other lists, dude.
Really?
I don't think so. And that's the craziest part. I might be wrong. Someone correct me in the comments. I don't think he is. But the reason why some may, and the reason why I don't have him higher, is the defense, which is so weird. But like, he's not a very good center fielder,
Mm.
which is kind of shocking given that he's an 80 runner. And he's like a 90 runner, realistic. Like, I just watched him in the spring breakout game run a 3.56 to first base on a bunt. A 3.56. You're never getting that guy out. So the interesting thing though is he tracks the ball pretty poorly, and I don't know if he's going to stick in center. They're going to try. If he doesn't make the opening day roster, that's going to be the reason why. But his bat to ball is elite. You mentioned the stolen bases. It's incredible. But if he's not playing good defense, is that the weirdest profile of all time? Like, I've never really seen an 80 runner who's hit over everything, who can steal 100 bags, who doesn't play good defense. So I'm hoping that comes along. And I guess even if it's in left field, he's still going to be valuable there. But like, can he play a decent left? We'll find out. But it's the glove that really held him back for me from being a little bit higher up on the list, because you got like an Enrique Bradfield Jr., who's an 80 glove in center and may end up being able to come along offensively and do a lot of the same things that, Chandler Simpson does. Maybe not quite as superb bat to ball wise, but not that far behind.
Because, we all go to Billy Hamilton, right? When we think about a guy like Chandler Simpson, like, can he be better than Billy Hamilton? But when Billy Hamilton, I mean, in 2014, when he was 23 years old, he was a 2.7 win player, playing above average defense while stealing 56 bases. 20, 2016, as a 25-year-old, he was a 3.7 win player, stealing 58 bases with only a 78 WRC plus,
Yep.
but he was such a good defender that the value was still good, because you knew he would steal 60 bases and play elite defense. You were fine if he was a well below league average hitter.
Yep.
But you're saying with Chandler Simpson, there's potential that he's Billy Hamilton's bat without the glove.
I think the bat's better.
Bat's better.
Bat's better, glove is much worse.
Mm.
So it's a weird, like Billy Hamilton did not make the contact that Chandler Simpson is one of the best bat to ball guys in minor league baseball, if not the best from just a pure, like, get the bat on the ball. Like, it may not always be the best launch angles and whatever. It doesn't matter with him, obviously. But he spoils pitches as well as anybody. I think the average in zone contact rate is around like 82%, something like that. His out of zone contact rate is 82%, meaning like in the occasions that he is chasing, he makes contact with it 8 out of 10 times. And then in the zone, I think he was close to 94%. So he's going to be one of the best contact guys in the game. And he's going to be getting on base at a ridiculous clip. The question then is, how is he accumulating WAR defensively? If he's even just an average defender, I
Yeah.
think the bat will be enough for him to be a solid everyday player. But it's one of those where, like, I haven't seen an archetype like this, and I'm excited to just see how it all grades out at the major league level. But he reminds me a lot of Juan Pierre, and if the defense can just be average, I think he's going to have a really long and successful career.
Great answer. All right, let's continue down the list. So we're going to go with another Discord question. And again, another reminder, it is only $5 to join before opening day, where it will be $10 a month moving forward. But we also have year and 6 month packages that are all discounted. Just another reminder, we're going over everything that we cover over here at Just Baseball, just with more exclusive access where we're answering questions constantly, live Q&As. We're going to do merch giveaways before opening day starts. So again, just $5 to join. You can find the link in the episode description. So this Discord question comes from CJ Rasher. Which prospect in the 100 to 81 range can fly up the prospect list in 2025?
Ooh, there's a few. There's definitely a few in that range. But, I think we talked about Brody Hopkins a little bit and just the stuff there. This was a guy that also it's TJ Hopkins' brother, the outfielder. Brody was also an outfielder and started to shift the focus a little bit more on the mound. And he walked like 30 something batters in like 40 innings. And then got drafted by the Mariners because they always draft stuff over results in college, and it's worked really well for them. And then got targeted by the Rays in the Randy Arozarena deal. So two very smart organizations see something in Brody Hopkins. And Hopkins was another guy that he was right on. I left it where I sent around, basically said I have 10 spots for 20 something names. And the name that kept saying, I kept getting feedback of he needs to be in there from folks was Brody Hopkins. And
Mm.
and I get why. It's just outlier like release. It's bizarre. It works though. It's a crazy pitch mix. So that's a guy that if he's around the zone a little bit more, and he took a big step forward in that regard this past year, he walked like 11% of batters. And if he can get a little bit better in that regard this year, I think we could see him make a leap. Yes, he's older for those levels, but as a pitcher, he's very young. So that's a guy that I absolutely think could make a quite a jump. And then this former org mate, Felnine Celestin. Celestin was a big ticket IFA guy for the Mariners, and Celestin was having a great year. He's a shortstop, switch hitter, crazy tools. And then he got hurt again, and injuries have kind of been the theme for him. But he was 18 years old for the entirety of last season playing at the complex, and he absolutely mashed before going down. In 32 games, he slashed 350, 428, 575. It's 1,000 OPS. Yes, he puts the ball on the ground a lot, but that's something that if he can improve upon that, he could be a guy with major, major, major helium. And then last one is Grant Taylor. Grant Taylor is an 83 White Sox prospect. He was out for most of last year with a lat issue. When he did get on the mound, his stuff was insane. And then in spring training, we've seen him healthy again, and the stuff has been outrageous. He pitched 2 innings against the Dodgers. He struck out six. Every out was via the strikeout, and it was dominant. Fastball was sitting 99 with plus carry, disgusting breaking ball, cutter in the mid 90s, a slider as well. Like, he's got a crazy arsenal. He's mixed in a changeup too. Grant Taylor wouldn't shock me if he can stay healthy, if he ascends as one of the better pitching prospects in baseball by the end of the year.
White Sox fans, the future is coming. 7 prospects in the top 100. Arm's even saying that one of those could even fly up the top 100. I know it's been horrible. Historic face plant off a 41 win season, but the clouds are parting. We're starting to see the sun. So before we continue into the rest of the list, our first break. Okay, let's continue down the top 100 in the 80 to 61 section. You have 2024 draftees like Braden Montgomery with the White Sox, Charlie Condon with the Rockies. On your top 100, who looks like the biggest steal from last year's draft? And you can't say Cam Smith.
So yeah, I mean that's my answer, but you knew I was going to say that. Charlie Condon, unfortunately, too, apparently serious wrist injury. He's going to be out for a little bit as well. It's just been a really unfortunate and rough start for him to his pro career. I do think that the Red Sox were very fortunate to have Braden Montgomery fall into their lap, and he ended up being a key piece to get them one of the best pitchers in baseball. But I still think JJ Weatherholt falling into the Cardinals' lap is crazy. We're talking about a top 20 prospect in baseball here, really, and or at least top 30
I
that,
see him at 26.
yeah, top 30 prospect that they were able to get in the 7th spot of a weak draft. Like, that's outrageous. So that's another spot where I think it was a quite a heist there for him to fall into their lap. Then I try to think about some of the other spots. I don't know if there is more of a clear-cut heist than him, but I would say Carson Benj as well. He checked in at 100. He rounds out the whole list. But Benj slipping all the way to 19 to the Mets, I thought was another one that was surprising to me for a guy that, has a good field to hit, can stick in center field potentially. I think you can see the power projection. Another two-way Oklahoma State guy now shift the focus to the plate, can now add strength that may have been counterproductive to a pitcher's body, now focusing as a hitter. I think Benj could make a big leap this year, and to get him at 19 in what was a weak draft, I think was pretty impressive.
So continuing down the list, going into one of my issues, and again, you illustrated the Chandler Simpson point beautifully. Like he might not even be on other lists, and if he is, you're still one of the high guys. So maybe you're high on this guy, maybe you aren't, but I still have to ask. The second name that jumped out to me being too low is Jacob Wilson at
Hmm.
52. I mean, the guy hit 433 with a 200 WRC plus. That's 100% better than league average between the complex, double A, and triple A.
Yeah.
And I was looking at his Fangraphs projections, dude. They're gnarly. A high end projection for him. And we have to remember, these are conservative.
Yeah.
3.6 F4 this season and a low end of 1.9. So still a two-win player at his worst this season. How is this not a top 50 prospect for you?
This might be an area where I could look back and say, I probably didn't weigh the floor enough
Mm.
there, right? Where if I'm looking at it and saying, where, if you ask me like open ended, where are some areas where you think you could get, like, not burned, but that you'll look back on the list and be like, damn, I flubbed that. I think it could be Jacob Wilson because he might just keep doing what he's done his entire life at the highest level. He just has to be so perfect. And maybe he can be because he has been darn near perfect up until this point. It's just when you are well below average in the exit velocity department, it's okay because he is off the charts in the contact department. But you usually want to see a little bit better approach wise. In the minors, he had about a 30% chase rate and he puts the ball on the ground a lot. So
Yeah.
he ran like a 393 BABIP in the minor leagues.
Mm.
And a BABIP that high with a hard hit rate of like 24%. Maybe he's just one of those guys that finds the gaps all of the time and it works. But when the ground ball rate's above average and your BABIP's that high and the exit velocities are below average and your chase rate's above average, I just wonder if it was maybe a little bit of lightning in a bottle, and in some hitter friendly environments too. That said, I think he's going to be a good big leaguer for a while. And the defense being better than anticipated at shortstop, where I think he's at least average, probably above average there, helps a ton. But I do think there's a chance that he just struggles to get to that 100 WRC plus mark because he's not going to leave the yard a ton. He's going to make a lot of contact, but he's not going to walk. So he's got to be really, really perfect with the offensive output. And he might be able to be that. But in terms of discrepancy, and I don't like to put too much stock into this because it's the minor leagues, but discrepancy between WOBA and ex WOBA in the minor leagues, I think Jacob Wilson had one of the largest discrepancies in of anyone in the top 100 list.
It's interesting. I am curious too, and tell me if I'm wrong. Was he always someone who chased that much? Because I could see that going from from college to the complex, then you're going up, you're skipping low A and high A immediately, going straight to double A pitching. You only have a cup of coffee there, but you rake.
Yeah.
And then you go up to triple A. Isn't it expected that a guy would chase more in those certain situations?
He's always been aggressive, but like I always say this with guys like this. How do you tell a guy that hits 400 everywhere to swing less?
Yeah.
So it might just be a learning curve at the big league level, and then he might just fix that, or maybe he makes it work. Like Luis Arias has a pretty high chase rate, works for him.
Yeah.
I mean, if Luis Arias had Jacob Wilson's skill set, he probably wouldn't be traded so many times. But it's that's the challenge because like I mean Arias, and then I'm saying the challenge for me to assess him as a player because Arias makes it work, but Arias is also darn near perfect when it comes to bat to ball and the way that he's able to spray the ball all over the field. Maybe Jacob Wilson can do that. We just don't have a lot of examples of that. But I am kind of prepared to be looking back at this and saying I was probably too low on a guy that is plus plus bat to ball wise and can stick at shortstop.
I can see where you're coming from because once we get into the top 50 is pretty loaded. I mean, you were talking about this might be one of the weaker top 100, but from me looking
It's
at the
still
top
really
50, it's still really good. And that's where we come to some internet hate for you.
good.
So the internet gave you some hate for the Max Clark
Of
placement at
course.
44 in the top 100 prospects list. Why are you lower on Max Clark than other publications?
And it's funny because I want him to be good. Like it's great for the game of baseball when a guy with his reach is what everybody wants him to be. And as a top 50 prospect, that's still a guy that we're projecting to be an above average regular for a long time. But if you're keeping up with prospects on social media, I mean, if I was keeping up with prospects on social media, I think Max Clark is the best player of all time. And that's why there was people that were responding to me saying, "Oh, he's Bryce Harper." Um, Probably not, and that's not a slight on Max Clark. Max Clark had like an 807 OPS in low A in his age 19 season. Bryce Harper had like an 820 OPS in the major leagues in his age 19 season. Like, don't do that. But to specifically talk about Clark, I think the defense and speed and arm are going to guarantee that he has a long big league career and plays a good center field for a long time. Where I differ is the bat. And I see people projecting above average to plus power and plus hit. I think he's hit over power, but I don't know where all of this power projection is being carved out. I know that he is a gym rat and he is really, really strong, but he's pretty maxed out physically. I don't see much more room for him to add strength to that frame. And he ran an 87 mile per hour average exit velocity last year. That's fine. But for a guy that is typically putting the ball in a more of a line drive trajectory, average launch angle of about 7 degrees, it's going to be more line drives, gap to gap, than I think it's going to be backspinning home runs. And that's probably what you want from a guy whose exit velocities are roughly average. And I don't think you see a ton of room for more. If you look at his path, he can get kind of heavy on the front foot and swing down on it a bit. So it's going to be more low liners and ground balls. So I just don't see more than 15 home runs from him, especially in Comerica. But he doesn't need more than that, right? Like if he's, the other thing is I think the hit tool is closer to average than plus. I think it is ultimately above average. But if it's above average hit, fringy power, and elite glove, that's a inside the top 50 prospect for me. But I think people out there have just been labeling him as like 5 tool star. And I just don't know if I see that. Maybe he starts lifting the ball more. Maybe he finds more bat speed. And that is something that you can add without adding a ton of strength by just, these bat speed programs now are pretty impressive. Maybe that's how he does it. But I mean, Kevin McGonigal, who we're going to talk about, that's not a guy that's viewed as a power bat. He had an average exit velocity more than 2 miles per hour higher than Max Clark. So
Mm.
I don't know where he's getting into that 25 home run upside that some people are projecting.
Mm. Mm. There was. I mean, what an answer. We love to hear it. So, my same question for you, or actually, before we move on to my next question, Brett Gardner. Is that a good comp for Max Clark?
I think it's more realistic, yeah. And the crazy thing is, and this is the problem with the prospect like media, and maybe I play a part in this. We set guys up to where Brett Gardner would be a disappointing outcome. A guy
Good
who had a
player.
37.2 F WAR in his career. And he might be a little bit better defensively, but I think the offensive output is very Brett Gardnerish. So if he's Brett Gardner with a little bit more defense, he could be a 40 WAR player. If you told Scott Harris that right now, he could take that or roll the dice on what Max Clark can be. I would bet you anything in the world that Scott Harris would take that and fucking run, as
Yeah.
he should. And I mean, that's the part where we get a little bit lost, I think, at times. And it's part of the reason why everyone hates Jason Dominguez now. Like, they're tired of hearing about all this stuff. And now Jason Dominguez looks like he could be Anthony Santander, and that's going to be some sort of disappointment. Like, that's where I hope I don't play a part in that, but that does frustrate me.
No, that's more than fair. And just to continue to frustrate you even more, the internet gave you a lot of hate for your placement of Kristian Campbell, second base prospect for the Boston Red Sox at number 36, Aram.
Yep. I mean, 36, I'm basically saying he's horrible,
He
right?
might as well have missed the entire list, and you hate every Red Sox fan all to their core. That's how they feel right now.
Um, this guy, so this is a fun conversation about subjective versus objective. And when you're analyzing players, subjective is going to be swing mechanics, looking at things that the eye test would bring out, and do we think that's going to translate or not? Objective is just the numbers, right? Like, what is this guy doing? What's the data look like? What is the statistics? Objectively, he was one of the best hitters in minor league baseball last year, if not the best. And objectively, based on the stats, would be a top 10 prospect. Subjectively, on the mechanics and the way he swings and just everything I know and have followed with about hitting, I wouldn't put him in the top 80, well, if that. So to me, this was kind of the middle ground there, even kind of skewing towards, okay, I understand that there's certain things that lead into a successful swing, but there's exceptions to every rule. And I think Campbell can be an exception. I think I'm saying that by putting him at 36. Like, that swing, if you had almost any other hitter in the minor leagues try to swing like that, I think they'd hit a buck 20. But
Hmm.
it's a testament to how much of a freak athlete he is. And Peyton, I know as you're editing this, please put these clips over right now as you're editing this of these swings that I'm talking about. And this is not to disparage Campbell. He's going to have a good career, I think. But the way that he moves in the box is so unorthodox, and it's so predicated on his body leading the swing. He's twitchy, gets away with it, but you'll see like the body opens up, barrels dragging behind, and he's swinging down on it. He's able to get on plane because he is, again, so agile and mobile and has such ridiculous whip. But when that body's leading the swing, hard stuff running in on him is going to tie him up. And I think with against major league pitching, they're going to wear him out inside, and they're going to use that to their advantage. You'll see a lot of his takes where he's already going, he can't shut it down. It's all or nothing, I think, with a lot of these swing decisions against tougher competition. And I do think that that's going to catch up to him at the highest level. Maybe it doesn't, but I think he's a guy that ultimately hits stuff on the outer half, bangs mistakes, and can carve out a nice career from that. But he's a guy that when pitchers are executing, you can set him down, and it's going to be that volatile hitter. The other thing that held him back a little bit is, yes, he's a good athlete, but he doesn't really have a true position. They're moving him around, trying him at different spots. He's going to be average at best at second base. They're trying him in the outfield. He's still getting his bearings there. So you still don't really have a clear-cut defensive home either. But it really is a matter of, I don't know if those mechanics can sustainably work against major league pitching, especially hard stuff running in, which I hope those clips are playing right now as I am speaking.
So, my follow up to that, and I assume a lot of Red Sox fans would follow up with this question. If you think that it's going to be such a big detriment to him at the big league level, why hasn't it shown up really in the minor leagues when he's putting up these gaudy numbers?
Yeah, I mean, and that's always the fun challenge in this whole thing. And I think it's also a reminder of how different the minor leagues are from the major leagues. The biggest thing is game planning. I think a lot Campbell flew up the ranks. So I mean, he started the year in high A. And quickly gets to double A, then quickly gets to triple A. So there wasn't really, I think, a ton of time to build a scouting report. And I don't think teams in the minor leagues necessarily are doing that often. You know, they're
Mm.
not really game planning specifically for you. And I just watched him in the spring breakout game. He just an absolute bomb off of a low A arm with great stuff from the Rays. So one pitch I would never throw him, a fastball middle away, and he destroyed it. And I look at a lot of the home runs that he hits. It's pitches that I just don't think major league pitchers are going to give him as often. What I
Mm.
do think is he doesn't miss mistakes, and that's a good thing. Like that's why he's going to be successful at the major league level because you get so many more mistakes in the minor leagues and he's not missing them. But in the majors, you're not going to get nearly as many mistakes. And if you miss one of them, that might be the one mistake you get that game. But I do think that is the big question. And that's why I have him at 36 is I really think the swing could be a major detriment, but I have to overlook that to a degree because the output has been so freaking good. So that's where I'm at ultimately. But I do think that there is going to be some challenges there with the way that you can kind of get him sped up inside and how erratic that swing can get for him. It is incredible that he was as successful as he is. And if he is the exception to the rule, and I hope he is, it'll be something new for me to learn and just see like how does he make this work and how can I apply this to future assessments. But for now, I'm going to side with history and just what I know.
Rapper Playboy Cardi needs your number on speed dial because he is in need of what you're giving us right now. Bars.
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 You didn't like the album?
That's horrible. That is horrible. What do we? That's for another time. I mean, it sounds like two garbage cans like just crashing against each other. It was terrible. You're not a Playboy Cardi guy either,
No, no,
right?
no, no. LaMelo Ball fans, I'm sure, love that album though.
Let us, let us, that caught me so off guard. Let us know in the YouTube comments below for all the people who are very high on Kristian Campbell, very high on Max Clark. What do you think of Arm's assessment? Can you get behind it? Do you still have issues? Let us know why in the YouTube comments below. All right, let's get even deeper into the list. So, which prospect in the 30 to 11 range has the highest upside to get into the top 10? Not necessarily the best prospect, right? Andrew Painter is number 11. He might be your answer, but I'm just looking for the guy with the highest ceiling.
So can I cheat and go outside of that range?
You can do whatever the hell you want.
Because I just saw this dude the other day, and I am impressed. Connor Griffin, dude.
Mm.
This is the crazy part about the draft too. You draft these guys, especially these 17, 18-year-olds, and then by the time you see them 8 months later, they've changed. They're like a
They're
foot
different
taller
people.
and
Yeah.
20 pounds of muscle. It's like, what the hell? Connor Griffin added strength. He adjusted his swing. He looks way better than he looked when he was arguably the top prep prospect 6 months ago in the draft. So Griffin's swing looking so much better, him looking stronger and still flying in center. I love that they're playing him in center too. I had said from day one, I get that he can play a decent shortstop. He could be an elite center fielder. To me, he looks like if the hit tool doesn't come along as much, and this is like the outcomes thing, right? If it
Yeah.
all, and this is why he's number 39 prospect and why I think he's going to keep getting higher if I see a little bit more with the hit tool. If the hit tool stalls out, I see still a Brenton Doyle type of outcome.
Wow.
If the hit tool comes along, you could see a superstar. So that's why I think he's going to ultimately be a guy that is going to be in the top 10 by the end of this year. If what I think is going to happen happens, because the high end outcome is holy shit, but the B outcome is still really freaking good. So that's probably a guy. But then the obvious answer within the 30 to what was it, 30 to 21 range or 30 to 20 range?
No, just 30 to 11 range.
Oh, 30 to 11 range. The obvious answer there would probably be one of Leo DeVries, Jesus Made,
Mm.
two 18-year-old, 17-year-old shortstops who DeVries with the Padres, Made with the Brewers, switch hitting shortstops with great plate discipline, huge power potential. Those guys are freaks as well. So I could see either of those guys easily flying up the ranks too.
All right, before we get into the top 10 prospects in Major League Baseball for 2025, our last break. All right, let's dive into the top 10. So we start at number 10, and we're not going to go each individual. I have a couple of questions surrounding the top 10, but I do want to start at number 10 because Dalton Rushing, catching prospect for the Los Angeles Dodgers, rose 13 spots. He was 23 at the time of your final update, which came in October. Now he's number 10. Explain why you prefer him to Samuel Basallo, your second ranked catcher. And it's
Yeah.
not to say, oh, Samuel Basallo is at number 40 and Dalton Rushing is at number 10. Samuel Basallo comes in at 13. So there's not a huge gap, but why is there a gap at all?
Oh, you would have thought it was the Grand Canyon based on reaction.
10 versus 13. Well,
Oh, gosh.
to be fair, when you guys go over my top 100, when we do a little Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A hour on Friday where I bring my top 100, I promise you're going to have a problem with a guy who's ranked 3 spots behind. So put yourself in their shoes for a second.
Yeah. No, I know.
No, I
He,
know.
Rushing, dude, like the numbers are pretty amazing, and he's done everything you wanted to see and more. And some of the pushback I got was like, well, if he was that good, he'd be up there. No,
They have Will
because Will
Smith.
Smith is there, and oh, well, then he'd be the backup. No, because they want him to continue to develop as a defender. And why would you have that guy up there playing once or twice a week? Oh, he can DH. No, that
No.
Otani guy DHs. There's nowhere for him. That's why they were trying to have him play left field. And it's ridiculous to try to have a catcher in his age 23 season try to learn left field. And he tried, and in the process of doing that, still improved drastically as a catcher. His receiving improved, his blocking improved. He threw out 30% of base stealers as well. Like that is all really impressive stuff. But then offensively, he ran an average exit velocity of 92 miles per hour. That would have put him near the top of the top 100 list, but that would put him, I know it's not major league competition, but still among the top 20 in Major League Baseball. For reference, I believe like a Corey Seager is at 92, Marcell Ozuna is at 92, and I think those guys are like 21, 22nd in Major League Baseball. He had a hard hit rate of nearly 50% this past year in AAA, in double and AAA. He launched 26 homers, and he only chased at a 17% clip. So you're talking about plus plate discipline, average contact rates, plus exit velocities, and a guy that threw out 30% of base stealers while learning how to survive in left field. And maybe that could be something that actually becomes valuable to him. Like maybe he can actually fill in there when they need. That is what really solidified him for me. There's a world where Basallo is a better player if it all comes together because he's so young. But at the same time, Basallo does come with some more concern about the defense catching wise. He's got time to get better and better. He's got a ridiculous arm, but the data I had access to had him grading out as one of the worst receivers in the upper minors. He has an 80 arm, which helps a ton, but that was kind of reason for concern for me a little bit too. Just I don't know how great of a receiver he's going to be consistently. And while he is ridiculous at hitting balls outside of the zone, hits the ball really hard, he can be pretty aggressive. But I do kind of see the Rafi Devers type of offensive profile potentially, which is still great. But I think the offensive profile is kind of similar from a power perspective, which is surprising to hear. There might be more in there with Basallo, but Rushing's already getting into it. And that's what really is amazing to me. Also, Rushing only puts the ball on the ground like 33% of the time,
What's Basallo at?
47. But
Hmm.
the difference is when he gets it in the air, it's gone. 49% hard hit rate is right there with Dalton Rushing. But if Rushing's putting up similar EVs and impact to Basallo, when that is Basallo's biggest calling card,
And he's a better defender, right?
and he's a
Rushing over
better
Basallo.
defender, it's the age, but like, okay, how much better is Basallo going to get in 3 years? He's already really freaking good. That's why he's the 13th ranked prospect in baseball. Maybe he does get that much better. I don't know if I see that much more progress for him. Obviously, he's going to slug more than he slugged in AAA, but I'm just saying progress as a defender, progress in general. He might just be somewhat capped in certain regards, but that still is an all-star catcher who could hit 30 plus home runs. I just don't know if he's going to be as well-rounded as a Rushing, who still can also hit close to 30 home runs.
So, as we continue to go deeper into the top 10, I apologize to Mariners fans and I apologize to Nationals fans. Colt Emerson comes in at number 9 and Dylan Cruz comes in at number 6. you'll be able to listen to Arm and Jack break down those players in more detail on the Call Up podcast when they continue to go through the list, going over each individual player. But my question lands on the seventh ranked guy in Kevin McGonigal and the eighth ranked guy in Zaire Hope. You've already talked about them a little bit, but you are much higher than every other list,
Yeah.
with those two guys in particular ranked right next to each other. So why are you so high on Zaire Hope of the Dodgers, Kevin McGonigal of the Detroit Tigers?
I think McGonigal might be the most pure hitter in minor league baseball right now, and he also blends that with an ability to hit the ball hard that we're seeing him like just really start to showcase. This guy ran an in zone contact rate of 91%. He
Elite.
doesn't chase at all. It's some of the best swing decisions in the minor leagues. And had it not been a hamate issue that cut his season short, I think we would have saw him really continue to settle in at high A and put up great numbers. He hit a ball 112 once he got up to high A, which for a guy in his age 19 season who's hit over power is ridiculous. I think like Max Clark's max EV was like 107 and a half. So just showing you what McGonigal was already able to get into. The other side of it though is when you blend plus contact rates with plus plate discipline, he recognizes spin so well. He's so comfortable left on left. He's able to get to pitches outside of the zone. But then you blend that with the fact that he actually hits the ball hard. An 89-mile-per-hour average exit velocity for a guy with his floor offensively and how sound of a hit and plate discipline guy he is remarkable. He walked nearly twice as much as he struck out last year. And defensively, is he going to be great at short? No, but that's a guy that people were already moving over to second base with nobody in the way and him actually looking pretty comfortable at shortstop. I think he can be a league average shortstop or close to it. And that really does help his value as well. So knowing that, I think, or at least feeling confident that he can get by at shortstop with the offensive ability that he has, with I think a lot more power in the tank, I think he can easily hit 15 plus. Just the offensive profile is just too solid, and I think he's going to hit a ton of doubles
Do
at
you
the
like
highest level
him?
as well.
Do you like him as a prospect better than Riley Green?
I think I liked Riley Green better because Riley Green's power and just the ability to potentially play center field. I think Green was on a higher level for me, but
Okay.
I like McGonigal a lot,
And then Zaire Hope.
dude. Well, this is a bigger roll of the dice,
Yes.
but this is the upside conversation that you just cannot pass on. In his age 19 season, Hope ran a 90th percentile exit velocity of 108.5 miles per hour. For those that are listening, that's just the top 10% of your batted balls, right? That would tie him with Roman Anthony for the highest mark on the entire top 100 list. That is plus plus for major league standards. We're talking about a 19-year-old who's plus plus in the exit velocity department for major league standards. That would have been the second highest among anybody who played 50 pro games last year. Obviously, Cags and those guys with metal would have been in that conversation as well. Hard hit rate of nearly 50%, chased at a 17% clip
Elite.
as a 19-year-old. He's a plus runner, and mechanically, the swing has almost zero wasted movement. And I watched this guy in Arizona launch a ball 470 feet.
Mm.
A 19-year-old hit a ball 470 feet. Then 4 days later, I watched him left on left against a AAA arm hit one 460.
Mm.
This is a 19-year-old that was doing it. He just turned 20. But you can't teach this kind of upside. Maybe he starts swinging and missing more in high A and double A and he stalls out. Potentially, I'd be willing to take that chance any day of the week with a guy that's putting up batted ball markers that rival some of the best prospects we've seen kind of come through the minor leagues in the last decade. And on top of that, it's not like he's whiffing a ton. If you even include the Arizona Fall League stint where it was ups and downs overall, in zone contact rate of 82.5% is more than fine. Overall contact rate north of 70% is fine for a guy that has his power and that chases as little as he does. Swing and miss is going to be something to watch, but I think he mitigates it enough. And I mean, to get into the power the way he is already, I love the makeup. I love the way he goes about his business. He can run. I think the defense was cited as a concern. I think he can play a really solid corner. Might be able to get by in center if he keeps progressing with his reads. This guy's a monster.
And to be fair to you, this isn't Zaire Hope. He was off the top 100 and now he's number 8. Or he was even in the top 50 and now he's number 8. He was 16 for you
Yeah,
at the final update.
yeah.
So you haven't really changed your tune. You've just watched more and more of him and fallen more and more in love. I guess my only question is 16 to 8. Is that because of improvements you saw? Because of graduations? A little bit of both?
A little bit of both. And just getting more feedback. Like that was one where when I was sending the list around, I was expecting people to say like, "You're getting a little ahead of yourself here." Not one person, like not one pushback on Zaire Ho. And maybe if I sent it to some other people, that I would have got that. But at least in the people that I sent it around to, no pushback. And they don't have any vested interest in the Dodgers. If anything, they have the opposite. I just that made me feel even more emboldened with it because I just when I was going through it and ranking each guy, I got stuck at that range, and I said, I don't think I would take Colt Emerson over him. And I love Colt Emerson. He's 9. I don't think I would take Matt Shaw over him. I love Matt Shaw. I think he's going to win Rookie of the Year. And when I got to that point, I'm like, well, then this guy's got to be in the top
Number 8?
10. And that's what I believe. It's ambitious, it's risky, but I just think you don't get an opportunity to have a player of this upside very often in your organization. And that's how I'm looking at it here. Is like I'm ranking them in order of guys that I would take in my organization if I was running a team. And he'd probably be my 8th pick because I have a chance to add a superstar.
So we just continue through the top 10 and we get into number 5 through 3, which is Sebastian Walcott of the Rangers, Walker Jenkins of the Minnesota Twins, and Jackson Jobe of the Detroit Tigers. 3 guys who are elite. But who has the highest ceiling between the 3 of them? Just talking about upside. But then who has the highest floor? Who are you the most confident will be an above average big leaguer?
Walcott ceiling.
Is it
He's
by
six
far?
by well, there's still a world where Walker Jenkins taps into more power, and then like, what does that look like? Because he's so good across the board, and he's going to be the floor answer. But like, there's still more in there. But I think Walcott, when you look at him, he could hit 40 homers. So I'd go Walcott. The thing with him too is he was 18 years old for the entirety of last year. And everyone wants to talk about how Ethan Salas was so aggressively pushed. And yes, he was. And it's really hard to draw anything from the numbers, being that he was so young for those levels. But Sebastian Walcott is not much older. I mean, he reached AA in his age 18 season and looked good there. It wasn't a ton of games, but right out of the gate, looked good. I think he hit 2 doubles in like his 3rd AA game. So this is a guy that is still just scraping the surface of what he can be. He's like 6'4", 200 pounds. He's just starting to get into his power more consistently. If you're popping 116 mile per hour exit velocity prior to your 19th birthday,
Wow.
what kind of power do you have in there? And it's just trying to control it all. And I think he's made some adjustments to get into it more. He moves well at third base. They keep playing him at short, and I actually think he's got a chance to stick there, which is crazy. I think ultimately he moves to third where he could project as an above average defender, which helps his case a ton. Rocket for an arm. But this guy's just starting to tap into, I think, that power in a consistent basis. And the approach is good. The other side is like, I could see a secondary outcome for him where he's like Gino Suarez. And I know that people are like, oh, that's disappointing. It's a really good big leaguer.
Yeah,
But
he's on
I
my
could see,
top 100 players.
yeah, he's good. I could see a higher end outcome, obviously, where he's a star. But I see either way, he's going to hit the ball hard enough and consistently enough in the air to the pull side where he's going to get his. And 30 home runs seems like a very reasonable and attainable outcome for him.
And the floor?
A floor for a guy like that. Oh, the highest floor.
Yeah,
It's
highest
got to
floor.
be Walker Jenkins. I love Job, and I think he's got a really good chance to be at least a big league starter one way or another. But I guess it's trying to value the floor because Jenkins, if he's playing center field every day, which I think he can do, and he's walking at an above average clip, he walked more than he struck out last year. And even if he's not tapping into the power, his contact rates are above average. I just his probability being an average everyday center fielder, I feel like is so high, and that's probably more valuable than Job's floor of being a 4. Not missing as many bats as we would expect is starting to get I wouldn't say concerning, but just starting to get a little bit like, I don't know, eye-opening. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering how
Just
many
like
more.
why? With a
Yeah,
3,100 RPM breaking ball and a fastball that can touch triple digits, he doesn't get as many strikeouts as you might think that he would.
no. And that to me, still with his stuff, even if it's not getting as many whiffs as you'd think, and his pitch mix and his athleticism, he's guaranteed to be a 4 or 5, at worst in all tragedy. But that's not going to be more valuable than an average everyday center fielder to me. So I'd probably go Walker Jenkins on the higher floor because I feel confident he's going to hit enough. He's got the speed. There's the injury concern, but you have the same thing with the pitcher any day of the week. So I would lean Walker Jenkins if you're ignoring injury concern and injury history. But Job's been a little beat up the last couple years too with other stuff, not arm related, fortunately, but yeah, has been beat up a little as well.
So is Job the reason he's at number three ahead of the guy you said has the highest ceiling, and then number four, the guy you said is the highest floor? Is he the best combination of ceiling and floor, and that's why he's at number three? Or is there a small part of you that's like maybe he should be five?
A little bit of both, but I think ultimately it's the ceiling floor thing. I'm still just going to believe in Job being able to get it all to work out Arsenal wise. Like he has flashed through the minor leagues. I mean, you mentioned the 3,000 RPM slider, but a disgusting changeup as well that was just hit or miss for him last year, but had been really, really good through stretches. Another breaking ball, two different shapes with his fastball, and he's tinkered with different things that through certain stretches we've seen him be dominant. So I still think that there's that frontline guy to dream on if he can find a little bit more consistency and find a little bit more consistent vert on the fastball. And he also is a guy that's so athletic that the command can continue to come along where he just starts drilling his spots and can be George Kirby-ish. So that's what I think it could be ultimately in that regard where Kirby, people always said, is he going to miss enough bats? He's going to miss enough bats. And he just ends up just churning out quality starts enough to where it works. The command isn't in the Kirby range yet, but we've seen it be that for stretches before. And he's talked about it. I think he ends up nibbling too much over the last year. It wasn't because he doesn't have the command, it's because he wanted to get more whiffs. And now he said, I'm going to challenge you, try and hit it. Probably not, is what he said. And I like that because ultimately I do like his chances. Even if he's not missing a ton of bats, he's going to be able to turn lineups over pretty quickly.
And my last question for you: why is Roman Anthony a better prospect than Roki Sasaki?
Well, we've seen it the last couple of days alone, huh? And this list obviously came out before that, but Roman Anthony, I was at the spring breakout game. He put on a show there, hit one that just disappeared into the night as some Rays fans were chanting overrated and just bat flipped. But the home run that he hit against the Marlins the other day, where it was like 5 balls up and he hit it 97-mile-an-hour fastball, he hit it 114 on a line 17 degrees out of the ballpark in a hurry. Crazy. But the reason why Roman Anthony's a better prospect than Roki Sasaki for me is you have a 20-year-old, a guy that was 19 years old at the start of the season last year, who ran some of the highest exit velocities in all of minor league baseball, who ran low chase rates and can potentially play center field. He mashed his way through double A. He mashed his way through triple A in that 19/20-year-old season while looking like he can get by in center field. On top of that, we're seeing him continue to get into his power more and more. But even in triple A, when he wasn't hitting a ton of homers, it was doubles, and he was still well above average as an offensive player there. But when you look at Roki Sasaki, again, he's a number 2 prospect. He's still really, really freaking good. But the way that we kind of weigh out the prospect rankings too is how much WAR do I think you're going to accumulate before you hit free agency? So in those 6 years of your rookie contract, so to speak, how much WAR do I think you'll accumulate? Anthony, he probably won't play center field for the Red Sox, but just in a vacuum, an above average or at least average center fielder who has plus raw power that he's starting to already get into at a high clip, doesn't chase, so he walks at a really high clip, and he's able to produce solid contact rates. That is going to be a WAR monster there, right? Whereas Sasaki, he could be if it all works out, but I still have some concerns with the fastball shape, and we're seeing that it's very velocity dependent. So if he's 99, 100, it's going to be playing well. But if he's 96, 97, which we saw a lot more of after this past year of injury, that's going to hurt him some. He's going to be very splitter dependent. The splitter is one of the best pitches in Major League Baseball already. But if that's the only pitch that you're really able to lean on, that can be limiting to a degree. And then also, I hate to project this, but with all of the injuries that he's had over the last few years and the consistent arm challenges, odds are he's going to miss some time in the next 6 years with an arm issue. I hope not, but I also think it's part of the reason why he came over here sooner. I think there's a chance that you're going to see Tommy John at some point in the next 6 years. And if he misses a year and change, that absolutely impacts the value. If that's what we're valuing here, is how valuable are you going to be in the 6 years that you are on your quote unquote rookie contract or under team control? That makes a big difference. So I'm going to take the plus raw power plus plate discipline center fielder who just mashed through AA and AAA as a 19/20-year-old, ran an average exit velocity of 92 miles per hour, by the way, which would have put him right there in the top 20 in Major League Baseball, who continues to look great in big league spring training and is still just scraping the surface of what I think he can be. I'm going to take that over a pitcher who's 3 years older, has some injury concerns, and still has some fastball shape concerns to a degree as well. Again, this is splitting hairs. We're talking about the number 2 prospect versus number 1, but Roman Anthony had a hard hit rate of 53% last year. That's ridiculous stuff.
Bars. Playboy Cardi, get this man on the phone. That's all the questions I have for you. And for anybody listening, if you have more questions about the top 100, you should go listen to the call up because they'll be breaking down each individual player. But on Wednesday, so our next episode, this is Monday, on Wednesday, we're doing a mailbag plus a recap of Cubs versus Dodgers. So if you have more questions, make sure to follow us on social media. That will be posted likely on Tuesday or maybe potentially Wednesday morning on our Instagram and on our Twitter, which you can find both links in the episode description. But we're also going to do half and half. We're going to have 5 Discord questions and likely 5 questions from social media. Just another reminder, only $5 to join our Discord for the first month. And again, remember, if you sign up today as you're listening on March 17th, you don't only get until opening day. You get March 17th all the way to April 17th. Whenever you sign up before opening day, then it's still very affordable at just $10 a month. Again, to join the Discord, jump in through the episode description. The link is in there. And for everybody who has just been listening, make sure rate and review on you or on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as like, subscribe, comment on our YouTube page. Before we go, Aram, any parting words? Maybe to the haters, maybe to the people who, maybe to the Glazers. Any parting words?
No, I really appreciate everybody that took the time to read it. And, that I had a lot of really good back and forth and conversation about it. And, it's a lot of fun to put it together. And I'm getting better at ignoring the craziness out there, but it does rattle me here and there. So I'll be honest, but I appreciate all the interaction, and it's always so much fun putting this together. And we'll have an update in the next probably couple months, probably right in around June time. We'll have our first top 100 update. We'll have a lot of graduates and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that. And then all the team top prospect lists are continuing to come out each week as we get into the season here. We're more than halfway through those team top prospect lists, which you can keep up with the release dates on justbaseball.com. But yeah, for the rest, listen to the call up and we'll be going through each and every prospect.
For Arm Layden, I am Peter Apple. We will see you on Wednesday. Again, another reminder, it is a mailbag, so you can either jump into the Discord or leave your questions on our social media profiles, whether that be on Instagram or on Twitter. And with that, thank you, everybody.